Jeff Molson recently said he thinks Marc Bergevin is someone who really understands how to build a hockey team. We discussed that quote and take a look at other hilarious sports quotes. This is Hockey Inside Out. Welcome to this week's show. My name is Adam Sesser, and joining me today is Stu Cowan, CBC Daybreak's Jessica Rusnak, and Julian McKenzie from CTV Montreal and Habs Behind the Prize. Here's what we're going to be talking about on today's show. Number 1, why did the Canadiens have such a hard time scoring goals? Number 2, are the Canadiens making a mistake by allowing Carey Price to return to the ice after his concussion? Number 3, will Mike McCarron ever gain a full-time role with the team, or is he just a first-round NHL draft bust? Number 4, are there any positives that can be taken away for Habs fans from this season? And number 5, what do you think about Jeff Molson's recent praise for and confirmation that Marc Bergevin will be back as general manager next season? Let's start the show. Last Saturday night, I was out at a bar, just about finishing up my third green beer, when I glanced at the TV and saw that the Canadiens had once again been shut out. This time by the Toronto Maple Leafs, which was a team I used to love to make fun of, but I can't anymore. I looked at the screen, took a picture of it, and then drunkenly posted that picture to Twitter with a description that sarcastically read, "Go Habs, go!" And it got no likes. Yeah. That sad little anecdote is the perfect summary of what this season has been like for Habs fans. The team was shut out once again on Monday night 2-0 against Florida, and they have been shut out a total of 12 times this season, which is a new record for the franchise. Whoop-de-doo. Why is it so hard for this team to score goals?
They have no natural finishing. They have no natural finisher on this team. This is a team that can actually get some high-danger chances. I believe they're a top 5 team in generating those high-danger chances, but they have no natural finishers on those teams on their team to finish off those shots. So that's why they're in the predicament they're in. 12 times they've been shut out. That is so bad.
And 13 times they've scored 1 goal. Which is, I mean, the offense is just a joke. I mean, Brendan Gallagher, God love him. I mean, he's the best player on this team this season. He's leads the team in shots. He's in the top 10 in NHL in shots, but all his shots go, this far. And he's not a sniper. I mean, his goals are banging in rebounds. But it's been an ongoing problem with this team. Max Pacioretty, the only legitimate goal scorer they do have, had a bit of an off season, and there's nobody else to pick up the slack. And missing Alexander Radulov has a lot to do with no offense, including with Max Pacioretty. So, the team that scores the most goals wins, and when you score no goals in 12 games and 1 goal in 13 games, you're not going to win too many hockey games.
Well, I think this was very predictable. If you look at the way the season ended last year, was because they couldn't score goals in that playoff series against the New York Rangers. Nothing was done to address that. They got Jonathan Drouin, but that was just fixing where Radulov was gone, and then you can argue too that Radulov it's not really replacing him in that way. So this is not a big surprise. I think a lot of people saw it coming that they don't have goal scorers, and as Stu said, the only goal scorer was Max Pacioretty, and he's having an off year. So this is the situation that you're in now.
Well, the big thing about Pacioretty having the off year he's having, guys like Radulov who are able to get him the puck, not being replaced, that's a huge reason why he's not contributing as much.
Yeah, I mentioned the show too. Radulov would have helped Drouin also, because Radulov does a lot of work that sort of a center does down low, winning puck battles and that. So that was the mistake Marc Bergevin made that just keeps giving in the bad way that he didn't bring Radulov back. It's interesting too that you mentioned about your tweet getting no likes.
I'm not a very active Twitter.
But it's a sign of the fans, because the only thing worse than an upset fan base is a fan base that doesn't care anymore. And I think the Canadiens are reaching that point. At the game the other night, when the Panthers went up 2-0, the building emptied. With 5 minutes left in the game, the building was more than half empty, and the only ones who left, that stayed, were booing them. But half who just left, like people have just. People I think are, and it's something Jeff Molson should be very scared of, is that the only thing worse than an angry fan base is a fan base that doesn't care. And there's not a lot of hope with this franchise right now, and I think that's going to be a real problem during the offseason.
Well, that's the thing, when people are not caring about it, like the more people that you talk to, a lot of times they're like, oh, are the Habs playing tonight? How many times have you heard that the people do not know when the Habs are playing? And I think this is different from that year, if you look when Marc Bergevin took over, the Randy Cunningworth year, that you knew there was going to be change at the end of that season. So Habs fans knew, okay, hope is around the corner, but now knowing that this is going to be status quo, I think it's a lot more difficult for people to get interested again in a team that you don't really see a solution coming.
A buddy of mine told me he was at a sports bar during the Olympics, and all the TVs were on the Olympics. The Habs were playing that night, and not one of the TVs had the Habs on, which is remarkable.
Yeah, it's tough out there. Carey Price said he'd like to finish the season strong. He's going to be returning to the ice on Wednesday night. Are the Canadiens making a mistake by allowing him to play for the remainder of this meaningless season?
I think they are. I think with everything that Carey Price has gone through this season, go back to BC, Carey, take a long rest, make sure you're ready physically and mentally to start next season. You know, the chronic fatigue you said you had at the beginning of the year, you got to come back 1,000% at the start of next season. Having said that, I understand why he wants to play. He's an athlete. Athletes want to play. He probably wants to give himself a little bit of confidence going forward. But can you imagine if he gets another concussion or something happens going into that $84 million contract next season? I don't see the upside of it. I think it's a risk they don't have to take.
Yeah, I don't think he needs to be there at all. I understand some players were coming out after the fact and saying, "Oh, it's really great to have a guy like Carey Price in the locker room, lifts our spirits up." Your season's already over. There's no real point in having that. And I was thinking about it this morning, what if this is just a perception thing? Because if Carey Price doesn't play the rest of the year, we go into the offseason as media types saying, oh, well, we don't know what Carey Price is going to be like going into next year. And then Carey Price enters the next season feeling all these questions about, oh, is your health right? You didn't finish the rest of the year. You've been injured. You're not in a good mental state. So I think the Canadiens are thinking of putting him in as a way to kind of get the jump on not feeling as many questions about his health come the offseason and come training camp.
That's a good point. I mean, and at this point in the season, the more games the Canadiens lose, the better for them. Fallin for Dahlin is the tank is on now. But no, we'll see.
But it's the kind of thing that you talk about. He's 100% healthy, and it's completely up to Carey Price. And just knowing his personality, he loves to play, and he's a competitor. And I think he wants to feel good about himself going into the offseason if he can end with a pretty good performance. But I always find it interesting when it comes to the concussions. When it was asked about Phillip Deneau at practice, and Claude Julian said, "Oh no, it's not a concussion. It's like a neck."
He's got a stiff neck that's giving him a headache. But
it has nothing to do with it. Well, your neck's connected to your head, and he had a pretty strong shot to the head from the puck of Zdeno Chara. So that's the kind of thing that I kind of wonder, is Carey Price really 100%? Or could this be a situation kind of like a Phillip Deneau that Carey Price one day might wake up with a stiff neck, but that will have nothing to do with the concussion?
Well, they still haven't said that Andrew Shaw has a concussion.
Yes, that's true.
Maybe it's a lower body injury.
Right.
I can't imagine the Canadiens putting him back in if he's not 100%.
Well, he is 100%. I mean, from their medical staff saying he's 100%. But again, it's just...
with concussions, it's just...
Don't forget, it's not... He's had lower body injuries. He's had head injury. He's had chronic fatigue. Yeah. There's a lot of...
Hasn't really been his year.
A lot of emotional injuries, I think. Rumored. Mike McCarron returned to the lineup last Saturday night against Toronto after being out of it since November 7th. He's played 10 games this year. He has 0 points. Do you think it's safe to say that he's a first-round NHL draft bust, or can you ever see him joining the Canadiens full-time?
He never should have been a first-round pick. He was ranked 35th in North America by Central Scouting going into that draft. The Canadiens were desperate for size, a big guy at center. They knew he wasn't a good skater, and they took a gamble on him, and it hasn't worked out. I mean, he shouldn't have been a first-round pick. I think it was a bad pick by the Canadiens. I don't think it helped Mike McCarron to put added pressure on him that, your first-round draft pick. His skating has improved, but he still struggles with his skating, and he always will. And he's reached the point where he seems frustrated when you talk to him now in the room since he's been called up. He was one of the last guys. They called up everybody else except the stick boy from Laval before they called up McCarran. And I think he's at a point where a fresh start somewhere else would be good for him.
And I always remember when he was drafted by the Canadiens after that first year of turning pro, that he didn't really have what you were looking for, and they kept selling him that he's a big guy, he's going to start playing center with the London Knights, and this is really going to be the guy that we're looking for, and that didn't pan out. But I think that was sort of a sign that he said after doing a development camp and a training camp with the NHL team that he felt that he was so out of shape that he didn't realize. He thought he was in shape and then got to the level that you have to be a NHL athlete, and he realized that he wasn't in shape, and that should have been kind of caught, I think, from their scouting department.
Yeah, this is a guy who never struck me as a guy who would be anything more than a third or a fourth line guy. And now I don't even think he could even be a good third line center, which I feel is really disappointing from a guy who, even though maybe he should have been a first round pick, you still took him as a first round pick. And the other day, he kind of referenced the fact that Thomas Plekanec spent as many years as he did in the American Hockey League. That being said, Plekanec spent actually produced way more than McCarran has been doing in the American Hockey League now. It doesn't look that promising for him. I'm not really sure where to go with McCarran. Maybe you're absolutely right. Maybe he should get a new start somewhere else. But he's erring closer to bust than a proven first-round pick for me.
The thing that I like about him is give a crap factor is a lot higher than some guys on that team. They had the fight they had the other night. He's out there. He's trying his best. He's banging. I think the Canadiens have succeeded in killing his confidence like they have with so many other young players. You throw Daniel Carey in there also. A kid gets called up from Laval. He's got a point a game and healthy scratch every second
So
game.
frustrating what they do with Daniel Carey.
It's one of the things that this management team is pretty good at, killing their players' confidence. Are there any positives that can be taken away for Habs fans from this season?
I think Brendan Gallagher has to be one of the only things that you could talk about from positive from this season, that he really showed his character and that he's a guy that's not going to sit back and say, you know what, this season sucks and we're not playing very well, so I'm just going to sort of just be a passenger on this bus. Instead, he said, no, I'm going to still play as if every game is worth something, that we could squeak into the playoffs, that kind of thing. So I think for Brendan Gallagher, this was really sort of a coming-of-age year for him to show that he has very strong leadership skills and that he's someone that really does care.
And coming back from those 2 hand injuries, it's nice to see him being healthy again and scoring. To me, the two most guys I've enjoyed watching the most this year are Gallagher and Victor Mete, who was, Arpin Basu from The Athletic. Our friend called him the little ball of fun, and I think it's the perfect nickname. He was a pleasure to watch. He was a pleasure to see in the locker room. As a kid living his dream as a teenager playing for the Canadiens. Smart, quick feet, even a quicker brain thinking the game. And Noah Julian, since he's come up, has really impressed me. He's really calm with the puck, big body. He's going to fill out. He'll get even bigger. He's just smart. I mean, he's been covering up for Carl Alsner. They're supposed to be working the other way around on that defense pairing. But those 2 guys are going forward with the defense. That's 2 bright spots. And Brendan Gallagher, just for not only his play on the ice, but the leadership he's shown this year and everything about him. The guy comes to play every shift.
I think all those mentions are really great, but one person I think also deserves a bit of praise is Nikita Scherbak. This was a first-round pick from a couple years ago who dealt with some injuries and wasn't necessarily looking as great in the American Hockey League as well. And we were wondering if he was going to be erring on the side of being a bust as a first-round pick. But I think even though consistency is an issue right now, and I think the more he'll play in the NHL, the better he'll get. He's shown glimpses of that first-round talent he really can be. He scored some really nice goals this year, and when he's on his game and he's confident, he's looked really good. This is a guy who could easily fight for a top 6 role next year, I think. So that's been my biggest positive. That's the biggest positive thing I've seen for the Montreal Canadiens this year with Nikita Scherbak. I like to see the fact that he's actually playing at a decent level now.
I worry about them killing his confidence too.
That too,
because he's an offensively skilled kid. I mean, and he seems reluctant to shoot the puck a lot of times.
Yeah,
he's
that's
like looking around, and if I'm with him, I'm having him watch the video of Laney in Winnipeg. Shoot the puck, shoot the puck, shoot the puck, shoot the puck, shoot the puck. So, yeah, but I agree. He's shown glimpses that he has the first round draft pick skill, and whether they can develop it, we'll see.
Okay, Jeff Molson recently confirmed to the media that Marc Barry will be back as GM next year. I'm going to read this quote, and I'll just put it out there, and you could do with it what you want. He said, Molson said of Bergevin, I think he's probably one of the better evaluators of talent out there and is someone who really understands how to build a hockey team.
Evaluator of talent, 2 words, Dwight King.
Can he build a hockey team?
Couldn't you say Paul Byron too? I mean, I think that statement isn't complete.
What is it, a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while?
I mean, and also here's the thing. I think half of that sentence is right. He's found these players who would be 4th-line players on other teams, and he's managed to turn them into decent contributors. There's the Paul Byrons, there's the Dale Weises, Phil Deneaus. Yeah. He's good at that. The problem with Bergevin is that he thinks he can make a whole team of those guys. And that's where we have problems. He can't do that.
And you're right. I mean, the top players, look at the players he's like, PK, Radulov, all the sort of high-skilled players. The other thing that was interesting about Molson's quote is when he talked about how Bergevin built a winner in Chicago. Well, he was Stan Bowman.
Part of it.
He was sort of part. He was a part of a team. He wasn't the main guy calling the shots. So that was a quote that sort of surprised me. I mean, he was part of a winning organization, but he wasn't the main guy calling the shots. It was Stan Bowman with Scotty Bowman, his dad, helping him, and he was part of a team. And it seems like he came here with no experience as a GM, and he did an okay job right at the beginning. This team, he managed to plug holes with guys like you mentioned, Weiss, and fill in some holes here. But in the overall picture, it's been a disaster. And Bill Parcells says says you are what your record says you are, and just look at the standings. That's who the Canadiens are.
Well, I think for Jeff Molson, he's made this decision and he has to defend it as best as he can with it. So seeing that quote from him, it is surprising because, as we said, if you look around, that's not really accurate in our opinion. But this is what he has to go and start doing. He needs to sort of reinvent, Marc Bergevin. And if he can do some good moves this offseason, then I think people can kind of forget about it and just say that was the year and a year and a bit that he had that really bad time of making decisions. But right now it's to redeem himself, and that's what Jeff Molson's decided to give him. So he needs to show Marc Bergevin as much support as possible.
It can't be good moves. They have to be great moves. This is an offseason where he has to literally swing for the fences and go out and get those pieces. As unrealistic as those options may be, John Tavares is obviously going to be that top fish in the market, and I'm sure, I don't think he's coming here. I think a lot of people don't feel he's coming here, but if you're Jeff Molson, if you're Marc Bergevin, you're laying the foundation and trying to get him here now. Just don't get involved in like tampering or anything like that. Don't get in trouble. But I don't know. Seeing Jeff Molson speak to the media and say that quote, that made me think two things. One, he doesn't care. Two, he's either talking to John Tavares, because there's no way he's going into the offseason with this confidence that he has right now. He has to be doing something.
I think he's just selling it.
I don't understand why Molson was in such a rush to give Bergevin that vote of confidence. So they're sending out, they're renewing season tickets and stuff. Like, what was the rush to, we talk about hope. I mean, a lot of people were hoping he was not going to come back, and then the team's struggling. He says he is coming back. I don't know why he had to do that. Why not wait until the season's over, people have calmed down a little bit, emotions are a little lower, and then say Marc Bergevin is going to come back.
Okay, well, that is our show for this week. We want to thank you all at home for tuning in. What positives would you take away from this season as a Canadiens fan? Are there any? Let us know in the comments section below. I'm curious. That's it for this week. I'm Adam Susser, and I'll see you next Thursday.